Hey everyone, this is Sandy.
And Reza,
Back for another episode of the Stone Cold Sober podcast.
episode number 3.
Episode number 3. I'm excited. Almost at the full month.
Yeah,
I'm really excited that we keep doing this.
me too.
I think for me, it's a really nice sort of stress relief thing to kind of just have the games on, like on mute and just be able to discuss things
Yeah,
without the feeling that we're like late for something or have to get somewhere.
it's a nice fun thing to do just on the weekend.
Yeah.
Keep up with the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of the world, I was reading this article this past week, talking about the CEO of PIMCO,
Okay.
which is like one of the largest global portfolio management companies based out in Newport, California. Actually, my friend Dan, he works at PIMCO. He moved out there a few years ago,
Nice.
and he moved out there. But their CEO, Mohammed El Arian,
Yeah.
he retired. It was now people didn't know originally sort of what the deal was, if there was some sort of beef between him and Bill Gross.
Yeah.
That's sort of always been like a standing sort of talking point between people. But he said that he resigned after his daughter told him how much he had missed in her life. Sort of the anecdote goes, he was telling her that she had to brush her teeth more.
Right.
And she was just like, I'm not listening to this. I don't have to listen to you. You've never been around. And then she goes into her room and pulls out a list of like maybe 20 something things,
Yeah.
27 moments in her life that he's missed. And he called it a real wake up call. Now, what's interesting is this is a man who makes around $100 million a year,
Wow.
walking away from one of the more respected and powerful positions in the world of finance.
Yeah.
And just saying, I've missed too much in my daughter's life, some of who I deem very important.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just all the money in the world isn't going to buy those moments back.
Right.
And so that really spoke to me from like a work-life balance
Yeah.
standpoint. What are your thoughts immediately on or initially on hearing something like that happen?
I think it's really impressive. Typically, I guess you think of these people in these high power positions that just put work first, and it'll just kind of stay that way for however many years. I did see this story too. She was his 10-year-old daughter, and the thing I like about that is that she's not too old. That he's left this job, and he will be able to interact with her quite a bit, I think. As far as relating to my life, it's kind of interesting because my dad did work a lot.
Yeah.
Now my family, school was kind of first, so I was never doing too many extracurricular activities, sports and whatnot. When I did run track, I didn't expect any of my family members to come out. I think my parents came to one meet that I had.
When did you do track?
Junior year.
Oh, I remember that.
Do you?
I think I remember that. I'm just saying that I remember that. I don't really remember.
Yeah, I did track. Why I did track because Yaron convinced me to run track. He tried to get me, Andrew Baker, and Danny Hill to run track with him.
Uh-huh.
And so I was like, screw it. I mean, I never played a sport in high school.
I think I was the only Asian in high school not to do track of some kind.
You had tennis, so you were busy.
Yeah.
The same season sport, right? Men's tennis was spring.
Yeah, but there was also winter track.
But winter track
so
was
there's-
cold, man.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
I believe that.
You practice outside in the winter, and then
F
your
that
only indoor
noise.
your only indoor time was for the events.
So yeah, that work-life balance. You're saying that in your house, school came first.
School came first. My dad's work was of the utmost importance. We had one parent worked in my family, so my dad worked and my mom stayed at home. So anytime I needed something, I guess I didn't really expect my dad. It would have been nice to have my dad at some things that I did, but at the same time, he was around plenty. He did it. His 8 to 5 job. He was around the weekends. He was around plenty. So I guess I can't relate so much in that manner. And there wasn't anything immediately after school that I was doing where I was disappointed that my dad wasn't there. So it is hard.
Okay.
It's hard for me to relate to this girl's particular her exact circumstance.
Yeah.
But I do think it's really nice that he left the job for his daughter. I
Yeah,
think it is really important. You hear too much about people working way too much, and
yeah,
being too far away from their family, whether it be their wife or their kids or both. So it's kind of refreshing to see.
yeah. My dad worked a lot growing up. He's now, I guess for people that don't know, my dad's a, senior research bio. Let's see what he actually calls himself. I've always called him a senior research biologist. Um, looking for my dad on LinkedIn, which is really funny
Yeah.
because he's the first one that comes up. He's a senior research fellow at DuPont.
Okay.
We have two shared connections. He has 233 connections. What is my dad doing having 233 connections? He updates this pretty regularly.
I don't think my dad does.
Yeah, so he does. It's like chemistry and microbiology.
Yeah.
He does a lot of. He's a products guy as well. So what his sort of major project right now is bio, I guess genetically engineering yeast, a certain strain of yeast,
Uh huh.
to develop the omega 3 fatty acid
Okay.
with the idea that there's a huge global demand for it. It's good for your health, so the gray matter in your brain, that's no longer sort of disputed, right?
Right.
However, there's a couple of things that are barriers to entry. First, it's a fish oil, and a lot of the world can't eat animal product for various reasons.
Right.
Second, it's really expensive to get high yield omega 3. And so a lot of people don't have access to it from a cost perspective.
Right.
Now, if you can genetically engineer yeast to sort of ferment, sort of like breweries, then you're really bringing that to the world at large. So that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
So my dad's been doing that for the past number of years. I think he's the highest ranked, not ranked, but like level Asian scientist at DuPont, which I think is a big deal. The man, the man is a savant, genius. The man. I remember growing up, he would always, after dinner, just reams and reams of genetic code, right?
Yeah.
Just GTAC, rows and rows and rows.
Yep.
Is that a red pen and a cup of tea, and he would just circle things all night. Always working on the weekends.
Yeah.
And so I kind of understand what it's like to have like a parent that worked a lot as well.
Uh huh.
But we were talking about how I was on the tennis team, he would always come to my games.
Yeah.
And I don't think I appreciated that as much back then, knowing that how far his office is from our school.
How far was it?
Well, I mean, he works out in Wilmington,
Okay. Yeah.
at the experimental station,
Yeah.
So it's just down 202. But you have to drive 202 on the 926.
Right. And during that traffic and
It's probably like an
it's rough.
hour.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that he was able to sort of be there. And I think I'm only starting to realize that now, like growing up.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, they really cared. I don't know, I think also with Asian parents, I don't know how it is, with your household, but Asian parents have historically not been known to be outwardly sentimental
Right. I've heard about that.
and loving. And me being just I wouldn't even say precocious, just being a dumb kid, always thought from watching movies like, oh, white families keep saying I love you to each other. Why don't we say stuff like that?
Yeah.
My parents don't love me. But then I read an article, and it's crazy. I had to learn this from the internet. But the Asian parents say I love you by asking if you eat enough.
Yeah.
And how they focus on whether or not you're full, and they'll always feed you when you come home, which they always did.
Uh huh.
They're like, I hope you're eating enough, always eat enough. And that was sort of their way of communicating that. So that was
Very interesting. I wonder why that is.
I think it might be just based on how they were raised.
Yeah.
Because my parents grew up during a very tumultuous time in China, sort of the Cultural Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really interesting topic because my parents were affected in very binary ways. My mom's side of the family suffered, but my dad's family flourished comparatively.
Yeah.
So that sort of is an interesting bit, but I don't think they ever heard that kind of stuff growing up.
I see.
And if you don't hear it, then you don't know to sort of show it.
Right.
But that in no way diminishes like a parent's love.
Yeah.
It's sort of like that sample set bias. Like, this is all I know.
Right. Right.
But back to this work-life balance. This guy, Muhammad Al-Aryan, broke down moments in life into two camps: rubber moments and crystal moments,
Okay.
which I thought was pretty insightful. Rubber moments are moments that you can miss and bounce back from. Maybe a recital. I'm making examples up.
Yeah.
A recital, a little league game. But then there are crystal moments like graduations, weddings, things that happen once in a lifetime
Yeah.
that you can't miss because they're never going to happen again.
Right.
And so he realized that even like there were too many crystal moments that were they're in contention with like his work,
Mm-hmm.
and he didn't like what that did to his personal life.
Right.
So that's interesting.
Another thing I found very interesting about this is at 10 years old, this girl wrote the 22-point list of all the things that that he's missed in her life.
Yeah,
That's very
pretty precocious.
yeah for a 10-year-old. That's very impressive.
To be able to understand that, or sort of have that emotional, quote, emotional intellect, I guess,
Yeah.
of saying, I miss having my dad at these things.
Yeah.
I don't remember what I was doing at 10 years old, but I was not writing any lists.
No.
I don't think I was smart enough to write lists when I was 10. But I think that, like, I know I would struggle with this kind of decision. I don't know if I would be able to just walk away from everything.
Yeah.
The way I'm wired is that I'm always going 100 miles an hour. And I don't feel either happy or content unless I feel like I'm like almost drowning, either at work or life or whatever. Just there needs to always be something happening
Yeah.
for me to feel progress. And people who know me, and people I'm friends that are close with me, sort of know that like I'm always doing something.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for the next sort of thing to do, and I'm never content because I get bored really easily, and I use work as a big excuse to like not chase down or confront the uncomfortable questions that I ask myself.
Right.
Work is almost like solace, where I can be like, you know what? Why am I not looking? I guess the question is like, why am I not looking for a life partner in any way? I've been really sort of blasé about that stuff.
Yeah.
Non-committal. Haven't really thought about it in a while. And it's just like, well, I'm busy at work. But I've been saying that for years now. And I keep saying, well, I don't know how much longer I'll be in New York. I don't want to start something with anybody if I'm just going to leave in a year. But I don't know if that's the right way to go about stuff like that.
Right.
To just like hide from the questions that you keep asking yourself. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
It's kind of interesting. So, I like to think that I found my life partner. Obviously, time will continue to tell with that, but it wasn't something that I was actively looking for either. You know.
Right.
And that's the thing that I find nice about my particular situation. And I guess I was kind of the same way as you. Just kind of focused on grad school, and my research in general. And even now, I think that's the nice thing that I have with my girlfriend right now is that we both understand when we have work to do, and we don't like to get in each other's way when it comes to that. So if I have a big project coming up or something like that, if I need time or space, she'll be able to give that to me. And in addition, like when I was defending my thesis, for example, my master's thesis last semester, she went out of her way to go and pick up like typically for these types of events, you'll bring coffee and bagels and breakfast or whatever for your advisors. So she went out and actually did that for me, and she refused to take no for an answer. So she went out that morning and got all this, all these snacks and whatnot for my committee, and she brought them in. She got to meet everybody and stuff. But had I not, just randomly asked her out one day, I still think that I'd probably be single right now. I'm never really looking or haven't really been looking for that life partner. It just kind of happened.
What's the story? How did that go down again?
So, what was it? So there were kind of two parts of the story. It was homecoming right out the year after we graduated from college, so 2011. And I think it was my birthday. She'd wished me a happy birthday, and homecoming was that weekend. So we said that, we should try to meet up and, just say hi and whatnot. We had first met when we were freshmen in college, and we, kept in contact from time to time, but we were never really good friends or anything like that. But so she was coming to town. We were going to try to meet up, and for whatever reason, we weren't able to do it. But we were texting a lot throughout that day, and we kind of lost touch after that weekend. So a few months go by. I just decided randomly to say, "Hey, what's up? See how she's doing." And then turns out that she had actually moved back to Delaware. She was living in Philly for a little bit, and so I asked her if she wanted to go out, get dinner sometime. And so after that, things just kind of clicked really well. And so we're, still together, what, 2.5 years, almost 3 years later.
Yeah. No, I think she's great for you. I've met her a few times. I think she's great for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I've never fully committed to anybody. At least not in a while, and I always used work as a crutch to get away. To like, I always like to put myself in the spotlight, but then just plead the fifth on a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I'm so uncomfortable answering these questions. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a confidence thing, an image, it's like a body image thing, or just a general confidence, like a lack of confidence thing.
Right.
But I need to figure. I don't want to be the guy who eventually, should I have a family, not be there for stuff.
Yeah.
To have to say, can't come to this recital, can't come to this ball game because I'm working. I'm working. At the end of the day, you read all these articles all the time about people on their deathbed, and the only thing they wish they did more was to spend time with their family and loved ones. You never hear somebody say, I wish I worked more.
Yeah.
But I think that's also like just a product of me in New York since college, going to NYU.
Right.
Via the business school. It was just everyone's driven. Everyone's looking to just succeed. You didn't go to college just to like get an okay job or to be like semi successful. At least that was sort of the environment that I was in.
Right.
So there was always an inherent pressure, even within your friends, to be like, "Well, this is what I'm doing. What are you doing?"
Yeah.
And if you didn't match up well, then it didn't. You were reflected poorly on yourself in a sense.
Yeah. Makes
And
sense.
that has just carried through. I worked full time senior year at the advertising agency Ogilvy.
Right.
Basically second semester on, a little bit first semester, but second semester on, and graduate. I got an offer like maybe a month before graduation. Everyone else had signed before the year started. That's sort of like how banking does it. If they like you junior summer, you get a job offer and you're set.
Yeah.
Barring like capital murder, you basically have your job. So everyone gets to relax for a year.
Right.
And then after graduation, you can have like a month off, and then you do training, and then you start your job. Meanwhile, I got my offer letter a month before graduation, so I'm like hustling every day to make sure I secure this thing.
Yeah.
And then I worked a week after graduation. And I've had 3 major transitions in my work, and it's always like give my 2 weeks, end on a Friday, start a new thing on a Monday.
Yeah.
I just don't know if I'm hiding from something, or why I feel like I need to keep working.
Do you think it has anything to do with just kind of the lifestyle of New York? New York always, to me at least from afar, always just seems like the type of place where everyone's all about their work, and has very, I mean, I don't want to say little social time, but I just feel like every time I go to visit New York, everyone's just kind of very focused. They're, when you walk by people on the street, they have no business, they have no interest in anybody else's life other than their own, their destination. Just get to where they're going, get to work, and do it.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I think people came here to make it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the song, I think, is very true. You make it here, you make it anywhere.
Yeah.
And people come here to hustle. That's what I did, leaving Unionville to come here. And sort of, I mean, your observation is really spot on. People on the streets don't care about anything about what other people are doing. If I have my headphones in I can't see anything.
Yeah.
You could be right in front of me and like waving at me, and I just have no idea who you are. It's almost like coming out of a haze.
Yeah.
And I think I am a product of this city, just working constantly. But I mean, my friends I feel like they're really good at balancing social life and and work. But maybe it's I thought about this. Maybe it's a part of me is the whole like, am I an extrovert? Am I an introvert?
Yeah.
Because I feel like I really appreciate my alone time, especially on weekends.
Hmm.
But when it's like game time, I'm on.
Yeah.
When it's during the week, I'm very social. I mean, I'm social on the weekends, but I think I read this sort of designation. It was like a active introvert or something, or an engaged introvert, where you are able to carry conversations with people, but you definitely appreciate your alone time. And I think in high school I was definitely an introvert for sure,
Yeah.
but then like there was a little bit in college where I became a heavy extrovert, and now I'm like not regressing, but sort of returning back to my roots.
Yeah.
And maybe that's sort of maybe that's just a product of like my self confidence image, whatever it
I
is.
see. So, I guess what's kind of interesting about that. So I guess if I had to put myself in one category, I would definitely put myself more as an introvert, but with some qualifiers. So in high school, maybe even middle school, I was very shy, very much kept to myself. The only people I really talked to were like my just really good friends, and the way I became good friends with those people is because they would engage with me.
Right.
So even now, like I've never been a fan of going out to bars and stuff. Maybe that's partially because I don't drink, and it's kind of draining for me to go out at times. But I know I can be pretty awkward. It's very hard for me at times to engage with people if I'm just not in that right mood. So to have conversations with people that I don't really know, and I don't know. It's like sometimes I'm good at it, and sometimes I'm just not good at it. Maybe it just depends on who I'm really speaking to.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I was kind of thinking about it because I had to go.
I'm in the same boat.
Yeah,
Some nights you're just on.
yeah, yeah,
Some nights you're like, you're engaging with everybody. It's not a big deal. And other nights you're like, I can't wait to get out of here
yeah.
and go home.
Just go home and just chill.
Chill.
I would.
Yeah.
I was at this. So last Monday, I had to go to. What was the name of it? I think it was Delaware Governor's uh,
Oh, that's
Biosciences
right.
lunch,
That's right.
and there were plenty of researchers and scientists from several different types of colleges and universities from Delaware. And so the people at my table, so there was, I would refer to as the kind of the kids table. I went there through my, I was invited to go there because of a fellowship that I have, and all the other students that have that fellowship were sitting at one table, but there were two of us that didn't fit at that table. So we sat with the administrators, the faculty from UD, University of Delaware, at another table, and it was just kind of funny because like the kids table, they're all over there having fun and whatnot, and then and the adults table, if you want to call it that, putting the quotes around that, sitting at another table, and some of them want to talk about your research and stuff. And the thing I've always found interesting about my particular area, maybe it's kind of difficult to talk about, is that a lot of people, there are a lot of aspects of it that people don't understand. So when I talk about my research, there are two aspects. There's the biology side of things, and then there's the computational side of things. And I don't speak to too many people that can understand both sides of things. So I'll talk to like a biologist, and they'll want to hear all about the biology of everything. And the thing that's a little tough about that is that that's not my background. That's not my specialty. And so I might struggle a little bit to give all the details that they're looking for. But on the other side of things, if I'm speaking to like computer scientists, the motivation for these projects comes from the biology. So I have to give a decent biological background of everything so that people understand it. And I'm still working, and I guess that's a big part of what my fellowship is all about. It's geared to people in these interdisciplinary areas. It's trying to figure out how to speak about your work and help people understand what it is that you do, whether they're scientists or not.
Right. That's interesting.
I feel like we've deviated quite a bit from our starting topic, huh?
Uh, well, no, I think it's just sort of the work-life
Yeah.
balance and how you and I guess, sell our actions to ourselves, or what's the term when you justify?
Yeah, yeah.
At least with me, it's how I justify knowing that there's an issue with my work-life balance
Hmm.
and actively keep. I'm almost like a drug addict. It's like, yeah, but one more hit and I'll be done. It's like, well, I'll do this. Like this next job, I'll do better. And I think I'm starting to do that, but it's like I have to take baby steps.
Yeah.
I think with the notion that I never feel like I am. Well, of course, DeMarco Murray fumbled today. Um, sorry.
Our punt
I was
return.
waiting for him to fumble. I was like, you like, oh, did not count. The idea that I've always needed to prove myself,
Hmm.
and I don't know what the psychological sort of foundation is for that, but I've always felt the need to prove that I am real.
Right.
I'm not. I'm not like. I'm not an imposter at what I do.
Ah, that's a very interesting topic right there. The
Yeah.
imposter.
I want to. You look around, right? You look around at people in your group, and you're like, these people know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They feel very comfortable. Everything is second nature. And to me, I keep feeling like I have to. Am I overthinking things? Do I justify things? How do I? How do I get people to understand that I know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And well, how do you deal with stuff like that?
Well, so that's a really that's so that I say it's interesting because I was actually talking with Elena about this. Oh, 2 weeks ago maybe, and it's always something that's bothered me a little bit. I've always felt in everywhere that I've been, whether it was high school, as an undergrad, and even now my time in grad school and in my research lab, I've always felt like I'm this. I don't belong here. I've cheated or I've faked my way through here, and somehow I've made it this far, and people still haven't figured out that um, I'm I'm not good enough to be where I am.
Right.
I guess one thing that's really helped me out with that, I was listening to NPR maybe a year or so ago. There was an interview with this researcher. She was, I can't remember what she was studying. I think she was at either Harvard or Yale University, and she was talking with her advisor, and she expressed the same thing. And her advisor was basically spoke to her. I think this is after she's taken her preliminary exams. Even I feel the same way after taking my prelim exams, where you're just grilled for 2 hours from professors to see what you know and what you don't know. And so she said she felt this way, and her professor, her advisor, was she told her there's no way that she'd be in this position if she didn't know what she was doing. Just look back on the work that you have done, and think about where you were before you joined my group, before you came to grad school,
Interesting.
and you can kind of see how your progress goes, or how you've progressed over time.
Yeah.
And for me, that perspective helped me a lot when I really looked back on my work, especially writing my master's thesis. I think that's the point where I really felt like this is, wow, I've done a lot. And even if I look back on it and I can say, oh well, I could redo these analyses in a couple of weeks. What took me a year, 2 years to do, I could do in a few weeks. But
Hmm.
that's not really the point. The point is the whole learning process, the papers that you read, the conversations that you've had with people, the conferences that you go to, and the work that you learn about, and the mistakes that you've made. I think that's the big point. That's where all the time goes for me. The mistakes that I've made in redoing things. I feel like that's been, or that's kind of my qualification to myself, the justification
Yeah.
to myself, and how I feel, maybe I can feel a little more comfortable because from the mistakes that I've made, I've been actually I can converse with people and say things that have worked for me and the things that haven't worked for me, and I'm sure plenty of people feel the same way. Whether if they might feel like an imposter. What I hope is that 5, 10, 15 years down the road, when I'm working a real job and all, I'll never feel that imposter feeling ever again. But maybe in this training period, these early years for us, that'll continue. But it's important to remember that you wouldn't be able to make it where you are if you really were an imposter.
See, that's interesting. because I think I'm also in a very pertinent situation. One of the directors of my group right now, who just had a quite a healthy baby boy a few weeks ago, they named him Bear, which I think is a great name.
Yeah.
Bear. I was like, this man better, this baby better grow up to be just like a Bear Grylls, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I met him when I was an intern at Ogilvy.
Okay.
He was an art director then, and he had a very interesting sort of career. He started out as an administrative assistant for the CEO, sort of booking meetings and all that.
Interesting.
He expressed a desire to learn how to design.
Yeah.
So what he did was he went to art school at night, and then one of the creative directors, who also just had a baby
Right.
recently, sort of one day said, "Hey, listen, all of our designers are booked. We need you to make a very simple edit." And then, so he took on a piece of client work, did it, got it approved and all that jazz, and then slowly but surely they would give him more and more projects.
Yeah.
Up until one point where he sort of working on his thesis at night and working in an advertising agency by day, really sort of like one of the bigger goals of an art student.
Right.
If you don't count it like quote unquote selling out or what have you.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because he didn't graduate. I think he had one semester
Really?
left. But then the creative director was like, "Listen, we are the people who you give your portfolio to for a job.
Right.
I'm giving you a job right now. You need to stop working on your thesis stuff."
I see.
So he moved to American Express a few years later, and when I was there, I was designing a prototype for a different group, and I wanted his input on a design that I was doing, and he was like, "Do you want to do this full time?" And I go, "Yeah, I totally would." I've really respected him
Yeah.
as like a designer and a leader and a friend and and a mentor and everything. And we just started talking. We ended up getting the job, and the entire time when we were going through it, I was like, I have no like real skills, right? Like everything I know is stuff that I've read. I'm a quick learner. Like you can't match my work ethic.
Yeah.
And he goes, "No, I know you. We've been college for a few years." And the way he said he sold it to the higher ups was, "If you want another me, you're gonna hire this kid."
Yeah.
Because nobody worked harder than him. And so I'm not saying, like, I jokingly refer to it as fake it till you make it, but it's just like work harder than everybody else in the room.
Yeah.
And hustle harder because you need to work that much more to get to where people already are.
Right.
So it's just, I really appreciate sort of the chance he took on me, but knowing that I would never in a million years let him down.
Yeah.
Because A, I have too much respect for him, and B, I'm terrified of failing. So that's sort of the imposter bit. With just I'm too afraid to fail.
Yeah.
And I'll do whatever it takes. Like at the agency, there were a couple of times when I was put in sink or swim moments. Like when I started at the agency, I didn't know how ads got made.
Yeah.
I thought it was just like a Willy Wonka factory. Like stuff just happens.
Yeah.
But you realize a lot of people are in the process of making everything.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were so busy that, I had some mentors in different departments and what have you, but it was just like, you had to figure this out on your own.
Right.
And I was like, I'm not going to be known as a guy who failed because that just is not who I am. And there were moments when I worked myself into getting a stomach ulcer. That's how much the stress got.
Wow.
And that's not good. You got to really temper it that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like you and I are just that sort of imposter. The fear of being revealed as an imposter is a very strong motivating factor.
Yeah, it
to
is.
do well. At what point, though, do you transition from that fear to just confidence?
Yeah.
Because I feel like being confident will propel you further with less self-harm. I think the fear of being an imposter is motivating out of fear.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you're confident, you're motivated by the success. And I think fear of the motivation, like a positive motivating factor, will always propel you further than a negative motivating factor. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think if you're very confident, you can you can really sell yourself to people very well. You know, when you're applying for jobs and all. I had
Hmm.
there was I don't remember if she was an executive, what her position was from a biotech company in Delaware. She spoke to our class last semester, and it was really funny because I guess I'm not very cocky. I'm not very I'm not sure what the word is that I want to use, but she was just very confident in herself. She was talking about her experiences with her job and all, and she just blatantly, explicitly says, I'm very good at my job. I know, and everybody else knows it.
Hmm.
I can't wait till I feel that way about what I do.
Yeah.
When will that happen? I don't know. Maybe I'll have to fake that confidence for a while before I can truly believe it. But I would hope that it would happen, maybe in my particular field as I continue to work on my PhD.
Right.
Maybe I'll feel again, that type of imposter feeling when I get a new job. I don't anticipate that I'll be working on the exact same type of projects that I'm doing now in a in industry, which is where I presume I'll be going after graduate. I guess it's just all about experience and proving yourself to people around you. Maybe for me, I think when I start to really feel confident in myself is to see how much is that the right, I guess, how much better I am than other people in on a particular project or on something in general.
Sort of like comparatively, right?
Yeah,
Like
when you
where you are compared to where other people are.
yeah, I mean, have you ever? I'm sure you've noticed you've had a certain situations where you've been working on a project and you kind of naturally take the lead on something where you start to give people directions because some people are looking for somebody to lead them and you know exactly how to do it. It's just
Yeah.
very natural. It just kind of happens where you're working on something and you know how to get from point A to point E, and you need to tell people what B, C, and D are because
Right.
everyone else just kind of seems lost.
Yeah. Like I don't have time for us
Right.
to run around in circles. Follow me. We're taking the hill.
Yeah. I mean, you know exactly what it is that needs to be done, so go for it, right?
You're following me to B Dom, Reza. Or rather, I'm following you to B
I don't need
Dom.
to tell you.
Well, in Destiny you do. In Call of Duty you don't.
Yeah, we'll see.
Um, but yeah, that's. I think you and I have naturally felt comfortable in sort of that role.
Yeah.
But here's a question though: when how do you balance sort of feeling successful, comparing yourself to other people, saying that I am doing better than you are
Right.
in a similar level, versus I am doing well. That's all I need. I don't need to always compare myself to my colleagues or my friends and to say, I'm doing well. I'm doing better than that friend is,
Yeah.
or I'm doing better than that colleague is.
I mean, I guess that's where you should always want to be. You don't want to always be comparing yourself to other people. There's always someone else who's going to be doing better than you, and do you want to
Yeah.
really compare yourself to somebody who's doing worse than you because maybe they don't have that same type of drive that you have, and
Right.
and when you're comparing yourself, you say, hey, I'm better than this person, so I'm good. I never really want to be like that.
Right. It's like I remember in health class in high school there was do you remember the marine professor teacher?
Yes. What was his name?
What was his
Start. I
name?
think it started with Mr. Was it Mr. Herman?
Sounds right. Yes, Mr. Herman.
Okay.
He I think there was like a it was like a some kind of health class we were having where we were learning about mental health.
Hmm.
And he said, whenever you're feeling down, always remember that somebody out there is having a worse day than you. And his example was, I might feel like I'm having a down day, but then I'll remember that I have friends in Iraq right now
Right.
who are dealing with much bigger things than I am. So I should be thankful for the situation that I have found myself in.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, you know what? That is right. Even like when you sort of compare yourself uh, professionally or what have you, sort of what you're trying to do, it's at the end of the day, you're doing better than some people, but then you're not doing as well as other people.
Yeah.
So maybe that way you'll always have an infinite supply of motivation.
Right.
I think for me though, it's just not wanting to do that as much as I can, but not feeling I'm putting my friends down. Like, oh, I'm doing better than you.
Right.
So So that's how I feel like I'm successful. Like I don't ever want to be the guy that says I'm successful because I'm better than you, and those people being my friends.
Right.
Because I would struggle to have a healthy relationship that way, without either potentially sounding condescending in any way
Hmm.
or feeling like more self righteous. Because I don't think you should ever do that with friends.
Yeah. I guess another interesting thing about when you're comparing yourself is what measure do you use to compare yourself to other people? Is it knowledge? Is it, when if you think of something like knowledge, it's kind of difficult. It's not something concrete that you can really compare.
Totally.
So then the maybe the monetary aspect comes in, and that gets into a whole bunch of bad situations. You never really want to compare yourself to the salaries that somebody else makes, right?
I think, see, that's the thing, right? We live in a world where money talks. And with my folks, it was always, and I think it still is, the sort of a primary motivation or a primary benchmark is how much money you make compared to the other kids that we know,
Right.
or what you're doing compared to the other children and like the families that we used to have parties with. And I don't think they've ever liked hearing me say money isn't everything. And I think that's a really like that's a very millennial thing to say.
Yeah.
Sort of saying, well, I want to like what I do,
Yeah.
because then you don't feel like you're working a day in your life.
Yeah.
I think that's why my dad has had such a successful career. He loves being in the lab. He loves his job. And I think when we had to have a heart to heart the other when we were at a family wedding, just to sort of come to terms and understand where we were both coming from. He's always believed, and I think it's sort of a product of the career that he's in, but like advanced education is paramount to success in the sciences.
Yeah.
You need a PhD in most sciences that have to do with physics, biology, chemistry.
Hmm.
And that's really how you are able to break through that ceiling.
Right.
But for my role in my industry, it's not as clear cut,
Yeah.
sort of needing that kind of advanced education. And so our family's conversation was always, do you need to go to school? Or rather, you should go to school because that's how you never want like not having a degree to hold you back.
Right.
And I think we had to sort of come around to saying that school is important for the right field that you're in. And so I think it was more of a delayed conversation, but with my family, it's always, well, how much money are you going to make?
Yeah.
Because I think financial security is a really big thing with first generation immigrants. It's just how are you going to support yourself?
Yeah.
If you can't support yourself, then nothing else matters, and that's totally valid.
It is.
But I think with me, it's how much do you enjoy what you're doing? How much passion do you have for your job is just as important as what you're getting paid.
Right.
You have to take care of yourself from a money standpoint. But if you can somehow find something in life that you enjoy doing, then you should definitely go with that.
Yeah.
I think that's a really important thing to measure.
Absolutely. So I can tell you that my family's very, very similar. My dad has his PhD, his MD, and also a master's degree. So my dad has no shortage of degrees, and for us, it's always been school first or school always, really. And that's kind of why.
Jesus, how many commas does he have after his name?
No idea, but that's what I was saying earlier. I was never big into extracurricular sports and stuff, is because most of the time I wasn't allowed to. It's all about, for me, it was all about studying. And, you go to school, you come home, and you do your homework, you read and eat dinner, and then go to sleep and do the same thing the next day, which is really tough for me to do, by the way. And as I grew up, for me, there was never a question. I was always going to go to school after I graduated from college. So, first of all, there was no question I was going to college no matter what. There was nothing that was going to change that. And then when I started my undergrad, I knew that I was going to go to med school after I graduated from my undergrad. The only reason I chose computer science is because both of my older brothers, I think they went to college and they started majoring. They were both biology majors, I think, and they wanted to go to med school also. they got 2 or 3 years down the road and they decided they didn't want to do that anymore. So they switched to psychology so they can still graduate on time. So I chose computer science because I had one class in high school that I really liked. It was, I think we spoke about it last week. It was the hardest class that I had in high school, but I really loved it. It was my programming class. So I did computer science, but I still decided to take the pre-med courses so I can go to med school afterward. And I really struggled for a while to figure out what it was that I wanted to do after graduating. And I eventually just settled on foregoing my plans to go to med school, take the GREs, and then go to grad school and study bioinformatics. And I guess still my major goal is to make a lot of money. When I first started grad schools, I had a little bit of a comparative crisis, if you want to call it that, where I started to see how much money my friends were making, the cars that they were buying, the things that they were doing, and I just wasn't making it. I still don't make very much money at all. And it took me a little bit to kind of stop that comparison and realize that I really am happy where I am, and I do enjoy that what I'm doing, and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah. That's I think that's sort of a self-realization moment where you realize that what you do you're passionate about, and then hopefully the mantra of you don't ever work a day in your life if you enjoy what you do
Yeah,
should hold true.
yeah,
I think if you enjoy what you do, that passion will drive you to want to achieve and succeed, and then hopefully the market will reward you proportionately. And if it doesn't, then you regroup.
just have to find the proper balance with the family life then, I guess, right? Then you don't want to be working too much.
Yeah. That's sort of the balance that I think the most successful families know when it's okay to work more
Right.
and when it's okay, or rather when it's more important to be with your family.
Yeah, for sure. I guess
Um,
I misspoke a little earlier. I said that my work doesn't really get in the way too much of my relationship, and that's not necessarily true. I do know a few situations where Elaine has been a little annoyed with me because I was working, and she wanted my attention. We went to the beach a couple of years ago, and I took a few papers. I printed out a few papers. I had my backpack with me, my laptop, so I can take notes on these papers and stuff. And I know that she was really annoyed with that, and she didn't say too much about it, but I guess I have to be a little more cautious about these situations because I don't want to find myself in that, taking advantage of her respect for my work and think it's okay for me to work, every single weekend or 10, 11, 12-hour days all the time into my future careers. Maybe right now it's a little different. It's a little tougher for me to separate my work and social life because it's so easy for me to work from home and there's a million different things that I could be doing at any given time. So I just have to be very careful about that because if I find myself in a career like that after graduation,
right.
then I may find myself, away from my family, my kids, whatever it would be, for too long, and you missed out on those crystal moments, right?
Yeah. And I think that's got to you got to just be have an open conversation in your case with Elena and just understand like what's going to be the most important thing. And I think those things will organically come up, but just know, sort of like be on the same page about things.
Right.
Because I'm sure she wants to also have like a very successful career as well.
Yeah.
And so sort of like the balance of two working adults in a healthy relationship where you're both each other's biggest supporter, and yet you realize that, hey, I'm here. We need to sort of support each other in more than just saying, hey, have a nice day. You kind of need to spend time with each other.
Right. Right. And I think it's very important to be honest with yourself too.
How so? How do you mean?
So what I mean by that is I feel like a lot of people struggle to admit fault, admit mistakes, and I think it's very important in general to just kind of reflect on the things that you've done and the things that you want to do, and just realize that sometimes it's not the right choice. And I think you just have to it's very important to see things from other people's perspective. So you may decide that it's very important to work and to keep working on the weekends because you want to get that promotion, you want to make a ton of money and all, but for the rest of your family, that may not be the most important thing. You may make plenty of money, and it may be a very you may be hurting yourself or your family, everything in the long run, if you don't kind of just take a bit to reflect and make sure that this is the best group decision, not just the best decision for you.
Totally. I think that's important. Um, Maybe it's just one of those things where when certain inputs click harmoniously,
Yeah.
the answer will reveal itself. Where you can't, it's like, I like to equate it as you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
Um, but when you start to find yourself in situations where things are like either revealed to you, then you start to realize, hey, I didn't know this before, but now that I've experienced this new thing,
Right.
that I now know what's important. What I thought was important before is no longer as important.
Yeah.
I think that's just going to be something that you're going to deal with for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I guess I'm okay with that.
Yeah, at times.
At times, right? It is incredibly frustrating, but maybe it's just one of those things where I'm okay with not knowing just yet. I think I'm okay if I still have to work at a few things.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
All right. I think that's it for that.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about our next topic, right?
Yeah. Now so it all starts with the NFL,
Always starts with the NFL, man.
especially in the fall. The Washington Redskins,
Yes. Or the Washington football team, as some people will
the
call them
Washington
now.
football team. I'm sorry, we're not allowed to say that word anymore. Sort of. This team with the owner Dan Snyder have come under huge amounts of pressure to change their name, and that this has been a long thing in the making, where active, I guess, active the Native American community feel like they are being incredibly disrespectful with the name.
Yeah.
Now, we'll get into a little bit about sort of the history of the word, but they've come under a lot of political pressure as well. There are Senate subcommittees now being formed to force them to change their name.
Right.
Before we jump into it, what are your thoughts on the name? Do you feel like it should be changed?
I do. Maybe it's a little hard for me to say exactly why. Maybe I'm not super well versed on the topic, but I guess for me, I feel like there's one side saying, "Hey, this is offensive," and the other side's like, "Oh, no, it's not offensive. We don't. It's not. Let's go back and look at the history of the word and where it came from, and the history will tell you that it's not offensive. Like if people say something's offensive and it offends them, and every single time they hear it, it makes them cringe. I don't know why you have to go back and look at the history of the particular word to see and try to explain to people, hey, it's not a big deal. Everything's fine."
I think I agree with that. I think it's tough for one racial group to sometimes educate others
Right.
on why words hurt more than others. Like, I'm never going to understand how the N word affects you
Right.
from an everyday standpoint. I'm just not going to be able to because I've never been called that or somebody's never meant that towards me.
Yeah.
And there's some things about sort of my world that you're never going to understand just purely because you're not Chinese.
Right.
And I think with Native Americans, it's just when you call somebody a Redskin, it's not okay. And I think maybe because there's like not as many Native Americans around that you can still liberally use that word.
Right.
But if I was Native American, I would probably be incredibly offended every time I heard that word.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, in the Oxford English Dictionary, the exact definition is, and in kind of they qualify it with the word with like two words: dated or offensive, and it calls a Native American. And there's sort of there's two definitions that you can go with. It's sort of like in de jure or de facto in law,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
in law or in practice. So that was sort of the in law definition. But then the sort of social definition is a
Yeah.
pelt confirming the kill of a Native American.
Right.
From the very beginning of like when it was still the colonies and America was still getting going, when this was still not this is your land, this is my land.
Yeah.
This is all your land.
Yeah.
I'm here to take it from you. That because I don't know, you're trying to take a land that I've been here hundreds of years, if not thousands of years, and I'm gonna try and protect what I have.
Right.
How is that not a normal human reaction? You came here to take what I have and threaten my family. I'm gonna attack you
Yeah.
because you attacked me. So then you're setting up these things where you can confirm and like bounties on people by scalping them,
Right.
and that was termed a redskin. Now there's also sort of other definitions, and I think you and I sort of read the paper that this one Dr. Darren Reed of Coventry University presented.
Yeah.
Sort of a number of reasons why he argues the term is racist. He goes, to begin with, it's tough because Native Americans were a verbal culture, so not a lot of things were written down.
Right.
And then sort of breaking down people into different races is a very European thing that started during the colonization. Because you used to think of yourselves as English and French and Portuguese, but then when you moved into the new world, people were so radically different that
Yeah.
the easiest way for you to differentiate yourselves was to use race.
Right.
And then the use of the term red, including Redskin, is not original to Native Americans. They didn't call themselves red men
Right.
or red skin. And sort of the notion that this quote-unquote positive stereotype that allows fans and supporters to, honestly state that they're honoring Native Americans is forcing their idea of what it is to honor those people onto them.
Exactly.
Saying, this is a term of endearment or honor, so you should take it that way. When in fact, I am, sort of reliving these horrors that Native Americans have had to go through in these 200 years of American sort of the rise of America, and I'm supposed to take it sitting down? They're very honorable people.
Yeah.
They should not be forced to have to go through stuff like that.
Yeah. I definitely agree with you completely. It's a very tough topic. When you're on when one side is telling you that something is wrong and the other side is trying to sit there and justify it, especially when it's if a word is offensive to you or not, I just find it an impossible battle to try to tell somebody, no, it's not really offensive. Here's why. I just don't like the argument. I don't like that the argument is even happening.
The argument is so weak.
Yeah,
Did you see that Jon Stewart bit?
I did.
The argument is so weak. I'm a fan of the team. If you change the name, what am I supposed to call my team? Really?
Yeah.
This is what you're bringing to the table. I'll give you 5 minutes to formulate a new argument. That's absolutely absurd.
Yeah.
And then, I like how Jon Stewart sort of sold the clip like, normally, we don't like to, pull people out of context. And in this situation, we didn't do that.
Yeah.
Which goes to show you the absurd nature of this argument, where they asked sort of Native Americans why they thought it was offensive, and they gave sort of some of the examples we gave earlier. And they called on all these Redskin fans. And it was a diverse group of Redskin fans, old, young, black and white, male, female. And they're all saying, like, diehard Redskins fan from the very beginning. One guy had a WWE belt, which I always find really ridiculous. It's not that serious. You're not the world's greatest.
He's the world's greatest according to the writer who wrote that for him.
Yeah, exactly. And they said that they felt threatened when Native Americans were in the room. Now you have to start to ask yourself some questions. If you feel threatened saying a word that is designated towards other people that are in the room, shouldn't that set off a light bulb?
Exactly.
Like, you wouldn't say, like, you can't refer to black people with the N-word if they're in the same room.
Yeah.
You should never do it. That came out wrong, but you know what I mean.
I know.
You should never say the word.
I know
But
exactly
if
what
you
you're saying.
can't, if you can definitely not say the word while they're there, same thing with the Redskins.
Yeah, exactly.
They were like, I felt threatened. I felt like I was entrapped. Well, then why? Then shouldn't that say something to you?
Yeah.
That you don't even feel comfortable saying the word Redskin when there are Native Americans in the room.
Now,
How are you supposed to cheer on a team like that if you know the team if the name is wrong?
yeah. Now, I have a question. Do you think that they would feel that same way before this whole controversy happened? So maybe we go back a year, just 1 year from now. Do you think people would feel the same way?
No, I don't think they would because it's an ignorance issue.
Right, exactly. And that's,
You just don't know that it's an issue.
yeah,
But if you found out that it is, shouldn't it be on you to say, "Hey, you know what? That's a mistake.
yeah.
It's a 21st century. We know better.
Mm-hmm.
We're better than that. We're not going to do that anymore."
And that's what I like about this getting all the attention that it's getting. I don't know if you watched the South Park episode about this issue, but
I did not.
I like that it's coming to light, and I think that the article that we read, it's so that at least the numbers seem to be increasing on the amount of people that say that the word should be the team should change their name, right? So I like that it's being spread, and I like that it's being talked about, and I like that it's still being talked about, because when did this first kind of come up? Sometime this summer, right? Or was it at the end of last season?
End of last season.
Okay.
So at the in the middle of last season until now, was
Okay.
starting to get really intense.
Okay, good. Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, I think that the team should be. I think the name should be changed, and I don't think it'll be changed until, it just becomes a topic almost. I don't know, until it's just getting covered constantly in the media.
Yeah.
I do understand. I guess I wonder what the team's reason for not changing the name. Like, what's their reason for not changing the name?
Well, Dan Snyder just doesn't want to change the name. He says it's honoring Native Americans.
Now, do you think that's what he's saying publicly, or are there huge financial problems that'll arise because of that? Changing the jerseys, the logo. Would they change it to something more PC, or would they completely change it?
That's a good question. I'm not sure.
When the Clippers were sold, they were Bill Simmons. I think Bill Simmons and Jalen Rose and a few people on podcasts at least were talking about, or we're discussing whether or not the Clippers should change their name to kind of remove themselves from the Don Sterling era.
Yeah.
And they seem to be so open and liberal about it. Maybe it's a very different circumstance, but I just feel like if the Washington team were to change their name, I don't think it would be poorly received. I don't think people would stop going to the games. I mean, again, I don't know anything about this, but I would imagine that people would not stop going to the games because they would change their name. So maybe it really is just, this is the name we gave them. Maybe at the time that he gave them the name, he did feel like he was honoring them.
Yeah.
And he, maybe he doesn't want it. Maybe we go back to our old point. I feel like it's very important to reflect on yourself and the ideas that you have. And sometimes you have to admit to yourself that you were wrong about some things. Maybe this is something that he'll just have to admit to himself that, he was wrong. And,
Yeah, I don't think he will.
Decision. Yeah, I don't think he will either without, tremendous pressure from others.
Pressure or like a forced move.
Yeah, a forced move.
I don't know how you do that though.
Yeah.
I think with the NFL, everything comes down to NFL owners. The public can do whatever it wants.
Yeah.
But there are 32 guys in the NFL that sort of run it, right?
Yep.
And it's an old boys club.
Yeah.
It's all white males, is it not?
I think so.
I think it is.
I think so. I think the NFL is.
White male billionaires in anywhere between their late 40s and just later age.
Right.
That's a very sort of distinct demographic, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So they also probably grew up at a different time, but now we're just generalizing.
Yeah.
So that I want to refrain a little bit from that. But didn't the Washington Bullets change their name to the Wizards?
They did, yes.
I wonder how that...
I don't know. I don't know the history about that. I did wonder that. I wondered at the time whether it was, maybe not at the time, but over time, I wondered whether it was just something to kind of revamp their team. I don't think they were doing so well at the time when they renamed them. But maybe it was for a very particular reason. You know, get away from the bullets and the guns and all.
That was with Gilbert Arenas, right?
But yeah, so the Arenas thing happened after the change.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because he was on the team when they were the Wizards. Even when Jordan joined the team, they were the Wizards. I don't know what time that happened. I'm gonna quickly look that up.
That's crazy how far Gilbert Arenas fell.
Yeah,
Like, he got dropped and he never got picked up again.
have you seen? So he's pretty active on Instagram. They changed their name in 1997, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, it's been that long.
Wow.
We could probably look more into this later
For
on.
some reason,
too.
I thought it was a lot more recent than that.
I remember being a fan of them. You know,
I remember when they were called the Bullets.
yeah, I remember the Bullets.
Yeah, I grew up a Lakers fan. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah,
Supposedly there was a story where my mom, like when I was sitting in my high chair, and my dad, being a young father, would sit me and next to him on the couch, and we'd watch the Laker games.
Yeah.
Because I think it was the closest sort of team to San Diego, where I grew up.
Okay.
And so he goes. My mom said I would always do this where, as a child, when we watched the games, whoever scored, I just start clapping. So supposedly I clap more for the Lakers, but my dad's like, "Who are you rooting for?" I'm clapping every time somebody scores. It was
You were clapping a lot. There were a lot of scores in basketball, which
a
is
lot of scores. And I was always clapping.
I love basketball,
Always.
and people criticize it so much because of the amount of scoring that's involved. They say it should be a very difficult thing to do. I don't know.
I think scoring in the NBA is a difficult thing.
I think it really is. Yeah,
I
it
think,
is.
but you're in the best league in the world, so there's gonna be scoring.
Yeah.
You know.
Ask Roy Hibbert about it in the playoffs. He had a lot of trouble doing it, and he's 7 foot tall.
God.
I'm sorry for bringing up Hibbert.
No, it's just he had one of the most schizophrenic seasons.
Yeah, I mean, he was
In recent
he was
memory.
an all-star that season. He was great before the all-star break, which I actually didn't watch a whole lot of basketball before the all-star break. I think I started watching a lot after that. But
Yeah.
the first half of the season, I mean, the East was just terrible.
The East was really bad this year, except for Miami.
Yeah,
and
Miami and Indiana. And they at one point of the season, I mean, it was really early, maybe like we'll say like 20 games into the season. The only two teams that had a positive record, had a winning record in the East, were the Heat and the Pacers.
Yeah.
Every other team had a losing record. They were below 500, which meant like 11 or 12 of the 15 teams in the West had winning records.
How wild is that?
It's amazing, and they're still really bad. I mean, like if the playoffs were really fun to watch, especially that first round. But the difference between the Hornets and the Heat was very clear. The Hornets had no business being in the playoffs last year.
Yeah. I'm thinking about the NBA right now.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. There's not as many besides Donald. Well, I guess there's the Donald Sterling thing.
Yeah.
And then there is the Atlanta Hawks thing. For a second, I was thinking we haven't dealt with race in a while, but then I just totally realized I blanked.
The Donald Sterling thing was the thing that kicked it all off.
Donald Sterling kicked it all off. Atlanta Hawks thing sort of followed it up.
Yep.
Although the Atlanta Hawks bit was handled a lot more effectively.
Yeah.
From a PR standpoint, from a fan standpoint, from a management standpoint. I think I always really appreciate organizations that know how to deal with the inevitable crisis head on. You can't hide things in this world anymore.
Yeah.
Things will always come back to light. And you'll always take a ding initially, but you will protect your brand more effectively by coming clean.
Yeah.
It's sort of like how Tylenol went through that the scandal, I want to say 20 years ago, where there was cyanide in some of the capsules, and like maybe a couple people died. Instead of Tylenol saying like trying to bury the story, or kind of skirt responsibility, they did an entire recall of all Tylenol.
Yeah.
Cost them over $100 million, but people's trust in them was never higher.
Yeah.
They're like, we realize that there's a mistake. Sort of like how the automobile company, every few years, there's a massive recall.
Yeah.
Firestone tires explode on you.
Mm-hmm.
Or Ford
Problems with
SUVs will roll over on you.
Yeah. Problems with the airbags and all.
Airbags. Toyota had a
Yeah.
huge thing.
The brakes.
That's destroyed their brand.
Yeah.
Toyota was always known as a
Super.
consumer friendly company.
Right.
And after that, sort of like with the Japanese way of dealing with crises, which is a lot different than with the way we do it here, it was just they lost a lot of consumer confidence.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was thinking about the NFL. I mean NBA, and I was thinking with race
Yep.
how they're dealing with things just as much as the NFL is, and I wonder sort of how we deal with things on an everyday level. I remember reading something that said that racism isn't overt, in your face racism.
Right.
Racism is in the silent acts that people do every day. Like you're not gonna hear people yelling things at you derogatorily.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna put a huge question mark after that because I'm not sure if that's a real word at all.
We're good with
But
it. We're good.
but there's always sort of like here's an interesting example. My mom and my sister in Westchester, Pennsylvania, where we live.
Yeah.
They were. Now I think it's a Republican area, based on sort of the socio-demographic breakout, being a little bit more affluent,
Yeah.
being a little bit more conservative. They were at a farmer's market somewhere, off of like New Street or whatever. I think I forget where they were, sort of like towards Newtown or something, and they were the only Asian people there.
Right.
And my mom and my sister felt, they said, incredibly uncomfortable because everyone kept looking at them.
Interesting.
And the same thing sort of happened before when we were coming back home from a cruise and my dad made like the 18-hour drive from like Jacksonville or Orlando
Right.
to Philadelphia in one go.
Wow.
I remember staying up with him for that. But we stopped at a gas station somewhere in a small town in like South Carolina.
Yeah.
We walked in and the entire place went silent
Wow.
and looked at us.
How long ago was this?
I'll say maybe 5-6 years ago.
Okay. Wow.
And we were like, we cannot eat here.
She just walked in, walked right out.
We walked in, place went dead silent, and we walked right
It's
out.
like a Family Guy cut real fast. Like
Yeah,
it was
a hard
quick
cut.
joke.
Did somebody hit the mute button?
Yeah.
Is it that serious? And we just felt incredibly uncomfortable.
Yeah. So this is actually something I forgot that I wanted to talk about this. This is something that I kind of it's I wonder is it racist of me to think these particular things, because some people it just might not be, it might not actually be a thing. So I guess I'll give a quick example. I was at Target the other day, maybe a week ago, and I was just buying a few things, and the cashier was ringing up the customer in front of me, and they were having a casual conversation, talking. I think they were joking around a little bit, and so I get up. Once he leaves, I get up. I asked her how she's doing. She's just like, fine. Didn't ask me how I was. Didn't ask anything about that. And the first thing that came to my mind was like, why is she? Why does she feel that way, or why is she not talking to me the way she was talking to that guy before me? Does she not like black people? And I'm sitting there thinking that, and I'm like, is that messed up for me to think that? That's the first thing I jump to.
Reverse racism,
Right.
in a sense.
I jumped to that immediately. And hey, it may be that she knew the guy. They had, maybe he said something, maybe he bought something that just kind of sparked that conversation. Maybe I asked her how her day was going. She said fine. She didn't think anything of it.
Yeah.
I have had those situations too, when I've kind of just been in unknown places, where I've been driving, long way. I think I was in Ohio last summer for a research experience. On the way back home, I'm driving through these small towns in Western Pennsylvania and Ohio and all, and I'll walk in and I'm the only black person, and I start to wonder whether or not these people are cool with me being there, and I start to just be very cautious with the things that I do or say.
Here's a question. Since you are a young black man,
Right.
when you read about things like Trayvon Martin, the shooting in Ferguson, that clip that we saw earlier this week with the dash cam,
Yeah.
where the police officer stopped him, asked for his license and registration, he goes back into the cab of his car and gets shot 3 times.
Yeah.
How does that affect your outlook every day as a young black man?
Well, I guess for me, it's a little different because my I just feel a little I feel a little distant from those types of problems, and it's a little weird to say that. I'm a black man. I live in a city where there are very few other black people. But maybe it's the way I talk, the way I dress. I just don't feel like I have to be so worried about those types of things. But maybe that'll completely change when I have a bad run-in with a cop or whatever the situation would be.
Hmm.
Those stories really do bother me though, because I at the same time, despite what I just said, I still feel like that's not something out of the realm of possibility to happen to me. You get
Right.
pulled over late at night, and the cops training says, it's you just have to be honest with yourself, right? The cops training is going to say that he has to be very cautious, or he or she has to be very cautious in situations and kind of judge the potential actions that this person may make. And the only way that you really can do that is by race, how the person dresses, what their actions look like. The two of us saw that video, right, with the black man getting shot after
Yeah.
going back into the cab of his car to get his license. He
Yeah.
was very quick with the way he did it, but at the same time, that's not an excuse for the cop to shoot somebody. The cop's job is to assess these situations, and he has to do it so on a professional level.
Right.
He's supposed to be better at judging these types of things than I am. Maybe my first instinct would be to shoot because that was very quick and he looked like he might be going for a gun. But the cop's first instinct should never be that,
To shoot.
to shoot and then try to put the fault on the man who went to get his license. And he literally was doing what the man asked. He got his
Right.
license and the license falls on the ground. He gets shot. The crazy thing too is how many times the cop shot him. Like he came out the car, he put his hands up like what's going on, and the cop just keeps shooting him. That was
Yeah.
crazy.
And then on the ground, he goes, "Why did I get shot, sir?
Right.
I did what you wanted me to do."
Like I literally did what you asked me to do.
Right. Like the man was incredulous on the ground. Like, what just happened?
Right.
I followed your instructions. Didn't want any trouble. I think, I mean, that speaks to more of it, like the militarization of police in America.
Yeah.
Which I think you should always respect the law. Should you ever fear the law?
Mhm.
When you call the cops, you be afraid of the cops that are coming in.
Right.
So this American police, I feel like, are more and more sort of becoming like just everyone's a SWAT member.
Yeah.
And the SWAT team, first of all, side note, I'm very happy that the Jets Chargers game is on TV, so I don't have to see some janky Sky Sports British commentators telling me about my game.
Yeah.
Sorry. I just don't think that you should ever be afraid of the cops. The cops come, they have a firearm. That's fair.
Yeah.
What I also thought was interesting, somebody vandalized our home once in Pennsylvania.
Really.
They basically threw our trash all over our driveway and threw other people's trash on our driveway and threw all this food and junk on our garage doors.
Wow.
We came out and it looked like it was like a hurricane had come through. I'm like, what just happened?
Right.
The neighborhood cop comes around and I was just like casually speaking to him. And I noticed how many clips of ammo he had. And I remember this very clearly. He had 8 clips of ammo.
Wow.
Now, assuming he had an M9 or a 6 hour or whatever, that's 12 to 18 rounds.
That's a
12
lot.
to 18 rounds
Per.
times 12 clips.
Right.
That's a lot of rounds.
Right.
That's neither here nor there. But it was just sort of we've gotten to this point where every sort of police precinct is out there trying to get like these really intense weapons.
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing more and more M4s and MP5s and AR-15s, especially in New York, because whenever there's a semblance of a threat, NYPD comes out in force.
Yeah.
And I guess the NYPD is dealing. NYPD is sort of the new LAPD from the 80s.
Yeah.
Like with Rodney King and just the riots in New York. We're getting a lot of demonstrations nowadays with the police who put the man in a chokehold.
Yeah.
Stop and frisk being a huge thing in New York.
I didn't realize how big of a thing that was. You said even you've been stopped and frisked before, right?
I have totally been stopped and frisked before,
Interesting.
and it's just I didn't understand what was going on, and then it goes. I remember this very clearly. It was I was walking in Union Square. It was late at night. I guess I didn't have a hood up, but I just had like a puffy jacket on
Right.
with a backpack, and they were just like, "Sir, do you mind if we check your bag?" I go, "Excuse me," and like, "We need to check your bag." And I thought to myself, "Well, I don't have anything in my bag, so go ahead and check it."
Right.
But I thought to myself, I could totally throw the law at you right now
Yeah.
and say, "No, you cannot. Why are you roughing the passer?" Sorry.
Broken up that thought real fast.
Yeah, absurd. It was just why are you stopping me? And then it was just stop and frisk. Like, do you mind if we check your person? And normally, I should say, yes, I do mind. But when you've got about 3 or 4 cops around you, do I want to put up a fight?
Right.
Is it worth the hassle?
Especially considering that you were doing absolutely nothing wrong.
I was walking back to my dorm.
Right.
And so I guess in my mind, I was like, you know what? Just let them do what they want to do. And I ended up watching a video years later where there was pressure from higher ups to get more tickets, like the more write ups,
Right.
within the stop and frisk sort of that certain type. Now I know that a lot of cops don't like doing it. A majority of the cops don't like doing it, but they do it to keep their job.
Yeah.
But it puts me in an uncomfortable situation because what if I decided to be mouthy that day?
Yeah.
Not that I normally am, but what if I were to do that? You know, it's interesting. You start to encroach on people's rights because you shouldn't stop me based on either the way I dress, the way I look. Do I present a reasonable suspicion, or are you putting your own insecurities, imprinting that on me?
Yeah.
Have you ever had an interesting situation like that happen?
No, I never have. I've never had confrontations with cops. I got pulled over last year, and the whole situation was fine.
What'd you get pulled over for?
Speeding. I was speeding. I deserved to get a ticket. That's it. There's nothing more.
That's it.
You know those times when you got in trouble as a kid, and you're like,
You're just
you're
like-
right. I was doing exactly
Yeah.
what you told me not to do.
Yeah.
I felt like that again. 25 years old, feel like a little kid getting yelled at by my parents.
Yeah.
He didn't yell at me or anything like that, but it's just that shame. You're like,
I got pulled over right outside the high school once, but that was because my registration tags were expired.
yeah,
But that was interesting because I got stopped, and I was like, I got out of the car, which you're totally not supposed to do. I
you
had
could
no
get
idea
shot
what
for
to
that,
do.
Sandy.
I just stepped out of the car. She goes, "Sir, get back in your vehicle." And I go, "Okay, I don't know what to do right now."
It was a female cop.
It was a female
Okay.
cop, and she goes, "I need you to roll your window down." I go, "All the windows or just my window?" She goes, "It's your window." It's one of those situations like, just let me know very explicitly what to do. It's like, tell me if I'm an 8-year-old.
She's
She
like,
says it.
"Sir,
and I
are
go,
you drunk?
Tell me if
What's
I'm when
going
I'm a
on?"
4-year-old. Yeah, it's just. I mean, that wasn't an issue,
Yeah,
but it was just sort of. I've never really dealt. I've never had an issue with it besides the stop and frisk. It was more of a what is happening. I've had my bag searched a couple of times
Yeah.
in the subway, where if there's a threat in the city, what they'll do is like they'll set checkpoints everywhere,
yeah,
and they'll be like, "Hey, do you mind if we look in your bag?" And it's like, okay, like, sure. I don't have it. I've never had anything to hide. It's just, and I think that's more random than anything.
yeah.
But because there's been times where I've been dressed in a suit for work, and they'll be like, "Do you mind if we check your bag?" It's like, "Yeah, sure, whatever you want."
Interesting.
You know, I've got nothing to hide.
Yeah,
But I think there'd be people out there who'd be like, "I do mind. Why are you targeting me?" And for me, it's not worth. It's never been worth the headache.
yeah. There've been times where I guess many times when I'm like, walking around, and I see cops, I feel uncomfortable. I feel a little nervous, even though I'm doing absolutely nothing wrong.
Do you feel? See, that's an interesting thing, though, right? Because when you feel nervous, you start to overanalyze things.
Yeah.
You start to do things that you normally wouldn't do.
Yeah.
Do you feel that you're now, are you nervous as a young black man, or are you nervous in light of everything?
I
Or are those one and the same?
I don't know. I guess it's really hard to say. I haven't, it's really hard to say because it's not like I'm necessarily nervous because I'm black and I think they're going to single me out for anything. I guess it's just kind of hard not doing it in another person's shoes. if that makes sense. I was going through like a DUI checkpoint one time, and I felt nervous, even though I don't drink. I was going through the DUI checkpoint. I'm like, what if something crazy happens?
Yeah.
Because you see, you see those stories, you've heard those stories, and it doesn't. And sometimes those types of stories don't. It doesn't matter what your race is. Maybe
Right.
I have a different type of experience because I'm more mixed. I'm not the. I don't know. I'm not as dark as others are.
Uh-huh.
Does that alone make does that make me look different than potential threats? I don't know, or what they would perceive as a potential threat is the better way of saying it. Really?
Yeah, I remember, and I think I don't want to make a lighter joke of this, but so whenever I go back and I listen to Dave Chappelle
Right.
do that one bit where it goes where he's got the police scanner in his apartment,
Yeah.
and he goes calling out cars, calling out cars. We're looking for a black male from 411 to 67. And he goes, what? And then he basically says, he talks about how he's jerking off in the window. He goes,
He's trying to
everybody,
get his alibi.
he's trying to get his alibi. He's got the paper and the calendar up. He
Yeah.
goes, note the time. Note the time. Dave Chappelle was jerking off in the window at 2 a.m. October 10th. And he goes, it was definitely not me.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it's like to live with sort of that hanging over me,
Yeah.
knowing that you always have to account for your actions when that accountability is not there for others.
Right.
It's no having to deal with something that oppressive every day
Yeah.
in overt ways, in subtle ways, ways that we don't even really understand immediately. It's just I couldn't imagine, and I think it's really unfair for people to say like slavery happened so many years ago. Get over it.
Right.
I think that's a really juvenile thing to say.
Right.
Only because the racism post that is still very alive and well.
Yeah.
Slavery might not be there anymore, but the effects of placing one race of people as subservient or lesser than is still very much there.
Yeah. I mean, let's not forget the effects of separate but equal for all the years after slavery up until the 1960s and 70s when things started to change. And let's not assume that as soon as the Civil Rights Act is signed, everyone all of a sudden is not racist anymore.
Right.
That my parents were alive for that. They may have not been living in the United States at the time, but they were around then. It's not that far away. It was not that long ago. Maybe for us it seems like that because we weren't alive then, and the best we can get, the closest we can get to it is what's written in our textbooks and what we might talk to our parents or grandparents about. But I was actually listening to the Joe Rogan's podcast the other day, and they were talking a lot about. I don't remember if they were necessarily talking about. I'm forgetting the word that I'm thinking of. Affirmative action. I don't remember if they were specifically talking about affirmative action, but they were saying that even if racism is not a thing in a particular place, the effects that putting one class ahead of the other class for so long, that is still alive. The opportunities that some people have are just, you just so happen to be born into a family, and you don't have to be a rich family. You just might be a white middle class family who happens to have access to go to a good school, in the suburbs or whatever it would be. Some people aren't that lucky, and it's not their fault. It's they don't have the same opportunities that other people have. Now and then, I guess they're comedians. I think the thing that I thought was really interesting. He goes, people just pull up their bootstraps. He goes, well, some people were just born with their bootstraps up to their knees.
Yeah. Some people were born with everything ready.
Right.
They had the boots.
Right.
Other people had to work to get the materials, and then had to work to put the boots together.
Yeah.
And then finally put the boots on, and then strap up.
Right.
It's interesting that you bring up affirmative action, I think partly because my sister and I've graduated college 2011. My
Yeah.
sister's a junior right now. Affirmative action is a very interesting thing based on the demographics it aims to help.
Right.
Lower class families across the board, uh, black, Hispanic. From an Asian standpoint, it hurts
Yeah.
us because we consistently score a couple hundred points above the average.
Right.
And so that means that from an affirmative action standpoint, we have to score X points more just to be able to take advantage of affirmative action. So when people talk about how like it helps everybody, it's like, well, you have to really put a big asterisk on that
Right.
because you're never going to be able to. I think we haven't found a program where you can help every. Is that Keenan Allen down on the ground? Sorry. Where you can affect positively every single racial demographic out there
Right.
because the chips are stacked against every single race in a different way. So then you also can't have like special call outs for other people because then that's just not fair, right?
Yeah.
You can't be like for Asians it's this, for blacks it's this, for Hispanics it's this.
Yeah,
You can't
yeah.
do that. And I think affirmative action in theory is a great idea.
Right.
I think in practice America needs to fix it by getting rid of it. I think I was just reading this article in Germany. They are abolishing college tuitions, where it will be free to go to college. They're saying that the worst form of sort of holding back, I forget the term, they were very eloquent, sort of the social barrier to success is preventing you from getting higher education. In this world, the only way to get anywhere is higher education.
Yeah.
The best, highest sort of probability of doing well. They have abolished that, saying that no matter what socioeconomic level you're in, you should be able to go to school.
Right.
In America, that's definitely not the case.
No.
Tuition, American university tuitions and textbook prices
Yeah.
have gone up somewhere like 400%. Textbooks 800%. You're pricing education out of both the middle class and the lower class. It becomes a class issue at that point.
Right.
And I think what's interesting is when it becomes a class issue, it transcends race
Yeah.
because you might have more of a particular race in a class, but it holds more people.
Yeah. What's interesting about that is that there are always special situations with each of these topics that make it very difficult, like something like affirmative action, to just be the all-around fix. Like, obviously, I'm a black male, right? When I apply to colleges, is it fair for me to get some type of, so first of all, how big of an, in quote, advantage would I get over other people for checking the box that says African American? Now, also know that my dad has a pretty good job. I was able to go to a nice high school and all.
Mm-hmm.
Am I then being helped by affirmative action? Do I need the help? Or is it, at the end of the day, all the universities or companies that are looking to hire me, are all they're really looking for is just to pad that, that percentage of
Sure.
of black employees or students or whatever it is? Is that fair? I would say
Is
no.
it fair? How much does that matter to you?
I mean, I would prefer just not to check the box at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to sort of take away that sort of that in your mind, right? Like, hey, I don't want to be. You don't want. It's sort of like it sort of loops back to the imposter bit, right?
Right.
Like I don't want to be hired based on just the color of my skin and not my accomplishments.
Right. Now, I know that they're going to still take into account your accomplishments and all, but the fact that it's even a thing, the fact that it's even there, it's then when you start to think again, when I was saying earlier, are people actually racist? Are they just kind of hidden? Are they thinking, maybe not an aggressive racist or anything like that, but do they feel like I'm in a position because of affirmative action, or was it actually my merits that got me there? I don't want there to be any type of question about that,
Right, and there shouldn't be.
but there always will be.
Oh well,
No
that's
matter
just
what,
yeah.
whether I check that box or not, I can't tell people, oh, I didn't check the box. I don't even remember if I checked the box when I applied for colleges.
I love it when certain people check the Native American box,
Yeah,
like on 164 Cherokee. Isn't there a legal limit as to what you are and what you can check?
I don't know, and that's another interesting thing about black. I guess maybe we should start trying to wrap it up soon. But like when we talk about Barack Obama, right? He's one half black, one half white, right?
People tend to forget that.
But then we'll just say he's black. I'm half African, half black, and half Iranian. Does that? But then by the standards of America, I'm just black. You can't easily pick out what my heritage is. You know that I'm not necessarily my background isn't 100% from Africa somewhere along the line. But just because I have that skin tone, then people just say, oh, he's black, right?
Yeah.
Now, I guess this then goes back to how people were treated way back in the day, during the slavery era and all. If a mixed child was born, they were black. That's it. There's no question about it. How far along the line do you have to go before you can just say, oh, you know what, that offspring is white?
Yeah. I mean, that's the crazy thing. It's the path of least resistance and minimal effort to classify people.
Yeah, it just seems like I wish this type of thing would go away. I wish it wouldn't exist. I don't think there'll ever be a time where it doesn't exist.
Do you
Just
think
a simple classification
do you think
method.
when because the next generation is our generation to lead, do you think we're gonna have gone through enough of this stuff to think, hey, this is nonsense?
I don't
Because
know.
the generation that's in power now went through a lot. Also, civil rights, all that stuff.
Right,
And we're still in the world that we're in.
right.
And you would like to think that in the digital age where we are exposed to so much that we should hope to do better.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
Good thoughts and good points, good questions.
Yeah, I think it's just something that we're going to have to live with every day,
Yeah.
day by day.
Step by step, day by day.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't see those houses when I was in San Francisco, but then again, I didn't try enough for it. I never watched that show growing up.
I watch it from time to time.
I love how Bob Saget is the exact antithesis of his character on that show.
Yeah. You never would have expected that.
But also, I was watching that Made Men sort of video series, and Bob Saget was on it, and he goes, "That was a very conscious thing."
I see.
Because because Bob Saget's always been like that, sort of like his character on Entourage,
Yeah.
just a dirty old man.
Yeah.
But that's just who he is, and people pay a premium to see that.
Yeah. So,
all right.
before we wrap up, I want to take it back really fast to talk about the Wizards and the Bullets, their name changing. It was actually a conscious decision made by their owner, Abe Paulin. He announced he was changing the team name in 1995 because Bullets had acquired violent overtones that had made him increasingly uncomfortable over the years, particularly given the high homicide and crime rate in the early 90s in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
So the name wasn't changed until 1997. I don't see anything quick in this paragraph that says why it was 97 that was changed instead of 95 when he announced that they were changing it. But
And where are you reading this?
just Wikipedia.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Figure we'd source that real quick.
All my
yeah.
information comes from Wikipedia, unless otherwise stated, I guess.
Well, you're a PhD student, so I wouldn't expect anything
Okay,
else.
so my PhD work, all that stuff has to be properly sourced. So if I do find something on Wikipedia, I have to find the real source, which is they're not good at doing it. I don't know if you ever looked at any of their images on Wikipedia, but sometimes there are no sources for these pictures. I know
Right.
they didn't make them up.
Right.
I know Wikipedia wasn't the original source for that image, but you can even reverse image search, and I sometimes won't be able to find images, so I'll just have to not use it completely.
Right. Here's a stupid question for you. Neo was born in Camden, Arkansas. His mother is African American and Chinese descent, and his father is African American. Okay.
Okay.
So his mom is half African American, half Chinese. His dad's 100% African American.
Right.
So what percentage Chinese is he? Is that a quarter or a
A
third?
quarter.
It's a quarter, right?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. In my mind, I'm like, it's a quarter because that's how the percentages work: one, 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 and two.
Right.
And for some reason, I always thought he was a third black, but I was like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the circumstance of how you become a third of anything.
Is it just like
It's a very tough thing. You have to be, I think, you have
you
to.
can't?
Well, it'll always decrease by a factor of two every time. So
Right.
you'll be half, quarter, eighth,
Half.
16th.
Yeah, half quarter quarter though is like the which you could be.
Right. So if you're a half and you have a baby with somebody who's a quarter, what does that
Yeah,
make you then?
an eighth, because half and a quarter.
Yeah, yeah, you're right.
Um, yeah. All right. Well, we digress.
Yes.
We
Going too long
digress.
about that one.
Yeah. Um, great topics today.
Yeah.
I think we covered a lot of good stuff today. Do you have any other final questions?
No. No, I don't think so. I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of places where we can fill in some holes and ask some questions, but I think those are things that we can revisit later on if we kind of just, I'm sure, I don't know about you, but from time to time, week to week, I'll kind of have a realization that I didn't say something that I wish I said last week. So, if something like that comes up, I'll try to bring it up later on.
Yeah, and to the kind listeners out there, if there's anything that we missed, feel free to leave it in the comment section, and we'll cover it next week.
Yeah. Well,
All right. Well, on that note, thanks again for listening to the Stone Cold Silver podcast. And we'll see you next week.